other side.
The world ended quietly. In the soft gray light of a Tuesday morning, I woke to the familiar buzz of my alarm, 6:45 a.m., and reached for David, expecting the warmth of his shoulder under my hand. Instead, my fingers brushed cold, empty sheets. My eyes snapped open, heart stuttering as I sat up, scanning our bedroom. The curtains swayed gently, the street lamps glow casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. "David," I called. My voice thin in the stillness, no answer. The house was too quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your chest. Heavy with dread, I slipped on my robe, the hem brushing my ankles as I padded downstairs, hoping to find him in the kitchen, brewing coffee or scribbling in one of his notebooks. The kids Zemmer, 12, and the twins, Liam and Sophie, 7, were still asleep, their doors closed along the hallway. The kitchen was empty, the coffee pot untouched, its glass carafe reflecting the dim light. My pulse quickened. David wasn't the type to leave without a word. He was steady, predictable, the kind of man who kissed me goodbye every morning before heading to his software engineering job. Back in our bedroom, I found it, a small, leather-bound journal on his pillow, its edges worn from use. My hands trembled as I opened it, revealing his familiar handwriting, sharp and precise. "I need to find the truth. Take care of the kids." The words hit like a physical blow, stealing my breath. Truth. What truth? David wasn't a man of secrets. He helped Emma with her algebra, built model rockets with the twins, and spent his evenings tinkering with an old ham radio in the garage. This note didn't make sense. I called his phone straight to voicemail. I checked his office, the garage, the shed, even the backyard, my slippers sinking into the dewy grass. Nothing, no trace of him. The kids wandered downstairs as I stood in the living room, clutching the journal, my mind racing. Emma, her dark hair tangled from sleep, frowned at me. "Mom, where's Dad?" "He's at work early." I lied, forcing a smile that felt like a grimace. "Eat your breakfast." "Okay." But my voice cracked, and Emma's eyes narrowed. She wasn't fooled. Neither was I. David was gone, and something was terribly wrong. The next 3 days were a haze of panic and frustration. I called David's office, his friends, even his distant cousin in Ohio. No one had seen him. The police were worse than useless, their questions laced with condescension. "Men do this sometimes, Mrs. Harper," the officer said, leaning back in his chair. "Midlife crisis. Maybe he'll turn up." I wanted to scream. David wasn't running from his life. He loved us. I knew it in my bones. Desperate for answers, I turned to his office, a small room off the living room cluttered with books, circuit boards, and stacks of old tech manuals. I tore through drawers, rifled through files, searching for anything that might explain his absence. Under his desk, I noticed a floorboard slightly raised, its edge misaligned. My heart pounded as I grabbed a screwdriver from the garage and pried it up, revealing a locked wooden box, its surface etched with faint scratches, as if it had been handled countless times. I forced the lock, the wood splintering under the screwdriver's pressure. Inside was a trove of secrets that didn't belong in our life. A faded map, its creases worn thin, marked with locations I didn't recognize, warehouses, motels, a diner in a neighboring state. There were grainy photographs of strangers, their faces blurred, but somehow menacing, and pages of David's handwriting, detailing someone called the Watcher. One note, underlined in red, stopped me cold. Serafini was never who she said she was. Serafini, my mother's name. She died when I was 16. A car accident that had always felt too neat, too final. David had never mentioned her beyond a few sympathetic words. When we first met, 15 years ago, why was her name here? Tangled in his secrets, the map pointed to places like Red Creek Warehouse and Mile 47 Diner, each annotated with dates and cryptic phrases. Meeting point, drop off, do not approach. Another note mentioned the Watcher, someone David seemed to fear, someone who was always one step ahead. I sank to the floor, The box's contents spread around me like a puzzle I couldn't solve. David wasn't just a software engineer. He had a past, a life he'd hidden from me, and somehow, it was tied to my mother. The discovery of the box cracked open my understanding of the man I'd married. I found an old ID badge tucked in an envelope. Its plastic surface yellowed with age. It didn't list a tech company yet. I identified David as a private investigator, licensed 12 years before we met. The photo showed a younger David, his jaw set, his eyes sharp with purpose. This wasn't the man who'd proposed to me on a rainy beach, who'd laughed when the twins smeared cake on his face at their birthday. This was someone else. His case files, hidden in a locked drawer I broke open with a hammer, painted a darker picture. David had investigated missing persons, corporate fraud, and, most chillingly, a case tied to my family. One file mentioned my father, Michael, who died of a heart attack when I was 20, or so I'd been told. David's notes suggested otherwise, hinting that my father had been involved with a charity called Seraphine's Light, the same name that echoed my mother's. The file described the charity as a front, its public face of philanthropy masking something sinister: money laundering, possibly worse. I sat back, my head spinning. David had known about my family's past and never told me. Had he married me to get closer to some hidden truth? Was our life together a lie? The thought made my stomach churn, but I pushed it down. I had to focus. David was missing, and these secrets were my only path to finding him. Emma's behavior added to my unease. She'd always been artistic, filling sketchbooks with vibrant drawings of animals and landscapes. But since David vanished, her sketches had turned dark, chaotic swirls of black and red, depicting a man trapped in a windowless room, his face unmistakably David's. I see him in my dreams, she whispered one night, clutching her sketchbook. As we sat on her bed, he's scared, Mom. He's in a dark place, and he can't get out. I hugged her tightly, my own fear mirroring hers. It's just a dream, sweetheart, I said. But the words felt hollow. How could she know this? Was it a child's imagination, or something more? I tucked her in, promising myself I'd protect her, no matter what. The feeling of being watched started as a prickle on the back of my neck, a fleeting unease when I took out the trash or walked the kids to the school bus. Then I saw it. Black sedan, its tinted windows impenetrable, parked a few hundred yards from our house. It was there every morning, every evening, a silent sentinel that never moved closer, that never left. I tried to convince myself it was a neighbor's car, a coincidence, but it followed me to the grocery store, the park, even the library where I took Sophie for story time. Someone was watching us. I started locking the doors at night, checking the windows obsessively, my nerves frayed to breaking. The twins sensed my fear, clinging to me more than usual, their small hands tugging at my sleeves. When's Daddy coming home? Liam asked, his voice trembling. Soon, I lied, hating how easily the words slipped out. I didn't have answers, only questions piling up like unpaid bills. One night, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. If you want to see David again, don't call the police. Go to where he met his last client. My heart slammed against my ribs. His last client? David hadn't worked as a PI in years, or so I thought. I scoured his journal, finding an address scribbled in the margins, a derelict warehouse on the edge of town, marked final meeting. Against every instinct screaming to stay safe, I left the kids with our neighbor, Mrs. Carter, claiming a work emergency, and drove to the warehouse under cover of darkness. The building loomed like a forgotten relic, its windows shattered, its walls tagged with graffiti. I gripped a flashlight, my breath shallow, and stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and the faint smell of oil, the kind that clings to your skin. I swept the beam across empty crates and broken glass, finding nothing until I reached her. Rusted beam in the center of the room. Pinned to it was a photograph of me, taken from across the street as I walked Emma to school. My hands shook as I tore it down, the realization sinking in. someone had been watching me for weeks, maybe longer. Mr. Grayson, our new neighbor, had always seemed off. He'd moved in a month ago, a quiet man in his 60s with a pristine lawn and a habit of avoiding eye contact. But I'd caught him watching our house, his gaze lingering too long as he watered his plants or collected his mail. After finding the photograph, I couldn't ignore him anymore. I marched to his door, my fear giving way to anger. "Do you know something about my husband?" I demanded, my voice sharp. He leaned against the doorframe, his smile unnervingly calm, like a man who knew more than he'd ever say. "You're asking the wrong questions, sir. Ask who David really was." His words hit like a slap. Who was David? The husband who kissed me goodnight every evening? Or the investigator unearthing secrets that could destroy us? I walked away, my mind racing, his cryptic warning echoing in my ears. The next shock came when Helen, my mother-in-law, appeared at our doorstep. I hadn't seen her in years. She'd cut contact after our wedding, claiming I wasn't good enough for her son. Now, she stood in my living room, her face lined with regret, her hands clasped tightly. "David was trying to protect you," she said, her voice low. "He found something about your family, something dangerous. He didn't tell you because he loved you." "What do you mean?" I asked, my throat tight. "Your father was involved with people who don't forgive," she said. "David got too close to their secrets. That's why he's gone." She wouldn't elaborate, but her words confirmed my worst fears. David's disappearance was tied to my family's past, a past I barely understood. I thought of my father, Michael, a quiet man who'd work as an accountant, or so I believed. Had he been something else? And why had David kept this from me? Back in David's office, I found a torn letter among his papers, its pieces scattered like confetti. I spent hours piecing it together, my hands trembling as the words took shape. "Seraphine's light will silence anyone who knows. They're watching you." The letter named an organization, a shadow group using the charity as a front for trafficking, and worse, David had been close to exposing them. His notes detailing meetings, names, and dates that pointed to a network of powerful people, politicians, CEOs, even law enforcement. The weight of it crushed me. My husband, my David, had been fighting a battle I knew nothing about. And now, he was gone, likely because of it. At 2 a.m., my phone rang, the sound jarring in the silent house. The number was unknown, and when I answered, static crackled through the line. Then, David's voice, weak and rugged, broke through. "Sarah, don't trust anyone, especially your mother." A scream followed, sharp and guttural. Before the call cut off, I sat frozen, the phone still pressed to my ear, my heart pounding. My mother was dead, had been for over 20 years. Did he mean Helen? Or was there another truth I hadn't uncovered? I didn't sleep that night, replaying his words, the scream echoing in my mind. Whoever had David was hurting him, and I was running out of time. I couldn't stay in that house, surrounded by secrets and shadows. I packed the kids and a few essentials into the minivan, following the map from David's box. It led to a small town 3 hours away, a place marked as safe, but nowhere felt safe. The black sedan followed us, always at a distance, its presence a constant reminder that we were being hunted. We checked into a rundown motel, its neon sign flickering in the dusk. The kids were exhausted, their questions about David growing quieter, as if they sensed the truth was too heavy to bear. At the motel, I found a note in Emma's sketchbook, slipped between the pages. "If you're reading this, you're closer than you think. Keep going." David's handwriting. He'd left breadcrumbs, knowing I'd follow. But then Emma vanished. We'd stopped at a gas station, and I turned away for a moment to pay. When I looked back, she was gone, her sketchbook on the ground, with a note. "Stop looking, or she's next." My knees buckled, a scream tearing from my throat. My daughter, my baby, was gone. Desperate, I turned to our family friend, Mark, a lawyer who'd known David for years. I showed him the notes, The map, everything, begging for help. But his reaction was off to calm, to evasive. Days later, I overheard him on the phone. His voice low, "She's getting close. What do you want me to do?" My blood ran cold. Mark was working with them, feeding information to whoever had David and Emma. I confronted him, my voice shaking, with rage. "Who are you working for, Mark? Where's my family?" He tried to deny it, but his eyes betrayed him. "You don't understand, sir. You can't fight them." I left, vowing to find my family without his help. I had one lead left. The warehouse. I left the twins with Mrs. Carter and returned, clutching a USB drive from David's box data he'd collected on Seraphine's light. If they wanted it, they'd get it, but not without my family. Inside the warehouse, a man emerged from the shadows, his face hidden by a hood. "Give us the drive," he said, his voice cold. "Where's Emma? Where's David?" I demanded. Holding it up, he left. But before he could act, a shot rang out. A woman, Claire, a former informant David had worked with, had turned on the organization. "Run," she said, tossing me a key. "They're in the basement." I found them, David, bruised and weak, and Emma, terrified but unharmed, curled in a corner. We fled, Claire covering our escape. She revealed the truth as we ran. Seraphine's light was a trafficking ring run by powerful people, including my father, who'd been an enforcer before his death. David had uncovered their secrets, and they'd taken him to silence him. We escaped, but the cost was our old lives. Clara gave us new identities, Emily, James, and new names for the kids. We settled in a coastal town, far from the city, trying to rebuild. But I'm not naive. I see it sometimes, that black sedan, parked near the kids' new school. I've started writing this story under a pseudonym, The Wife Who Vanished, to warn others they're still out there, watching, waiting. This isn't over.